and that only Scientology can restore a Thetan to its native state.
Lex Friedman has an ex-Scientologist member, and he explains exactly what Scientology is, guys. This is absolutely wild and crazy. I had no idea all this stuff was going down, and this will help us to be equipped and ready to be able to share the love of Jesus with others when the world brings lies. Let's get into it.
Let's start at the very basics. What is Scientology?
Scientology is a belief system created by L. Ron Hubbard that does fundamentally believe that we are all immortal spiritual beings called Thetans, that we have native godlike potential, that there is nothing more powerful in the universe than a Thetan. Like, so godlike is, quite literal here.
Sounds like just a complete lie from the devil. Did God really say that? No, it's because you will be like God. The first sin right away in the beginning.
And that through various decisions Thetans have made, they have fallen away from their native godlike power to fallen down to a state where most Thetans aren't even aware that they are Thetans, aren't even aware that they ever have lived before or have these powers. And that Thetans are now in a state where they're trapped in bodies, trapped here on Earth, trapped in this prison of a physical universe, trapped on this prison of a planet. And that only Scientology can restore a Thetan to its native state.
Are these multiple beings? Like, is there one Thetan inside of me that's trapped in this prison?
Well, the Thetan would be you.
The thing would be me.
The Thetan is you.
But I'm presumably limited in some fundamental way. So this Thetan that is me is limited. So there's like 8 billion Thetans on the planet.
There's one primary Thetan animating each body. Later in Scientology, you learn there's actually like tens of thousands or hundreds of thousands of like sick, unconscious, half-dead Thetans stuck to you that are...
Makes sense. Been having a lot of things half dead stick to me recently. No, I think it's just like some weird pyramid scheme type thing. Like, the more you get in deep, you're like, finally, I'm going to get rid of this thing. Actually, you have 10 more we just found, the deeper you get in. But I finally got 100 of them out.
Now, an additional cause of problems for you.
Sure.
But fundamentally, at the lower levels, the non-confidential levels, there's just one Thetan per body.
Yes.
Well, I mean, it's an interesting idea. I just would like to kind of explore the philosophy of that. So there's a being that's all-powerful, that's immortal, and its projection, its manifestation on this earth is fundamentally limited. And you're trying to, the process of Scientology is the process of letting go of those limitations. That's an interesting idea. I mean, a lot of religions have this kind of idea that there's, not just religions, but like we have the capacity as human beings to achieve greatness in all kinds of ways.
Yeah.
And that's the question we have with our cognitive abilities. We start with an embryo and build up into this organism and like this world of opportunities before us. What are we capable of? And the idea that we're capable of almost anything is a really powerful one. And there's a lot of religions, there's a lot of philosophies, there's a lot of advice, self-help that kind of explore those ideas. And so it seems like with Scientology, the application of this religious philosophy means that we're limited and we have to break through those limitations. And there's a process to break through those limitations.
That would be correct. So what can make it challenging to adequately and completely describe Scientology in the beginning is what Scientologists believe actually changes as they progress further into or further up in Scientology. So the explanation as I've given it is pretty consistent with what you would get at the lowest levels, right? You're a Thetan, I'm a Thetan, everyone's a Thetan, and we have a reactive mind. L. Ron Hubbard would say the reactive mind is a collection of these recordings, mental recordings of any moments of pain and unconsciousness you've ever had in your life. It's like the subconscious mind. It's always recording in moments of pain and unconsciousness. And that these recordings are called, L. Ron Hubbard called them engrams. Now, when L. Ron Hubbard first wrote Dianetics in 1950, this was before Scientology came along a couple of years later, right? So in 1950, when he wrote Dianetics, it wasn't a spiritual endeavor. It was supposed to be a mental health, a science of mental health. So as of that time, the earliest engram you could have was the incident of birth.
That sucks. Isn't that funny though? How people start off, yeah, this is just some self-help book or whatever, but really, oh, wait a minute. Actually, this was more than that. It's spiritual now.
Being born was an engram. And technically in Dianetics, they said you could have prenatal engrams, like when you're still in the womb. But there was no concept of past lives as of 1950 version of Dianetics, right? And so the idea there was that the reactive mind is essentially a stimulus response mechanism created through evolution millions of years ago to protect the individual from things that would harm them. In other words, things that would bring about pain and unconsciousness. So you have these recordings of things that hurt you, created pain and unconsciousness. And in present time, these things will react upon you in a way to cause you to avoid similar things reacting upon you in a subconscious, unconscious way.
So the reactive mind protects you from the trauma that is inside your subconscious mind.
Yes. And the idea is we've now, as human beings, evolved to a state where it no longer serves us beneficially. It only serves us negatively. This was Hubbard's theory. And he said, so you can get rid of these engrams by, basically recalling them and going over them again and again using Dianetics auditing therapy. And if you get back to the moment of birth and erase the earliest engram, all the other subsequent engrams on the chain would vanish.
This kind of reminds me, I saw people going through this process, and it's essentially them just, what's it called? Not mind controlling, like using psychological techniques, brainwashing you to think that those past traumas in your life were actually good things that happened to you. And they kind of erase those and completely make up a story that's better to get you to think it wasn't that bad of a problem. So it's crazy.
Nice. So there's a chain.
Earlier, similar, earlier, similar, earlier, similar, earlier, similar. Okay. So that gives you a pretty good understanding of how L. Ron Hubbard thought of the mind, because that carries on, has applicability later on in Scientology.
I mean, that's a pretty powerful model of the mind. I mean, Freud had similar conceptions that a lot of our traumas are grounded in sort of poor formulation of sexuality or imperfect formulation of sexuality in early childhood, something like this. And then we're trying to figure out the puzzle of whatever we formed in early childhood.
Right.
I mean, it's similar kind of.
It is similar. It's probably what Hubbard took it from. In the early days of Dianetics, before he decided psychiatry was evil, he actually credited Sigmund Freud with some of the shoulders he was standing on in writing Dianetics.
So he still admired psychiatry at that time. So that's an interesting moment of Dianetics. So what else? You mentioned Dianetics. Auditing was there too. So if we just, before Scientology, what are the ideas that formed what we know as Dianetics?
As I've just described, that is the fundamental. That is pretty much the nuts and bolts of Dianetics.
Was it applied? Was it applied often?
Oh, yeah. No, that's what Dianetics in the early days was all about, was just auditing. Auditing is the process of the one-on-one counseling, recall a moment of pain and unconsciousness, run through the engram over and over and over again, find something earlier similar. That is Dianetics auditing. One of the main things that changed with Scientology is that birth or prenatal engrams were no longer the earliest engrams on the chain.
Yeah.
The idea is you have to get the earliest engram on the chain for the later ones to blow, which is erase. And so, but all of a sudden now, with the addition of an immortal spiritual being into the equation, well, now the earliest incident could be trillions of years ago in other galaxies and universes.
Other universes? So before the origin of this universe?
Yes.
Is there a model of physics integrated in any of this?
No. The model is you have the physical universe, and then above that you have the theta universe. So we used the word Thetan earlier. So in Scientology, they also use the word theta. I don't know. Theta is just basically Thetan power. Thetans collectively. So Hubbard would say you have the theta universe, which is senior to the physical universe and creates the physical universe. And remember, I said native godlike potentials. So we're not talking about the God who created the earth. We're just, like, Scientologists don't believe in a God, but we'll get into that later. We're talking about just creating universes. Like, just think like Matrix. Like, when I say creating a universe, essentially just creating different Thetan simulations
But it sounds like a little bit more like the ideas of Plato, which is there's these Platonic forms, there's abstract forms that are bigger, more general than our particular reality here, and those forms are used to construct the reality.
Well, I grew up in a cult, so I'm not familiar with the works of Plato.
You can't use that as an excuse for everything. I would like to, non-jokingly
Yeah.
steel man the case, because a lot of philosophies, a lot of religions, a lot of even scientific endeavors are a little bit full of uncertainty. You can call it bullshit, but you're on unsturdy ground because we're surrounded by mystery, and you have to take these ideas somewhat seriously and see where those ideas go wrong. This happens with communism. This happens with capitalism. These ideas sound beautiful in their ideal forms, and then they somehow go wrong, and some go more wrong than others. And so I don't think it's easy to sort of caricature and make fun of the ideas. I think if we take them seriously, you'll start to understand, like, when you're in it, it was serious. It can be very convincing. It's,
But I would say when you test out Christianity and actually live it out to the fullest, you see time and time again that there are no problems. You test it out time and time again. Yes, there's definitely major problems in communists, like massive. You see all the societal communistic countries fall, okay? Capitalistic, there's flaws in that too, but it seems to be more beneficial. But Christianity, it withstands the test of time because our leader is not someone trying to gain anything from you. It's Jesus. Jesus is our leader. He is our savior. He died so that we could be saved, not the other way around where we die for the leader.
the devil is going to be a charismatic person. He's not going to be a caricature, a ridiculous person. So that helps us understand which ideas will sound appealing, but will become dangerous.
I totally agree. In fact, it's one of the thrusts I have on my channel is wanting to talk about Scientology in a way that would actually resonate with current Scientologists, not just resonate with former Scientologists. I want people who are still in to be able to hear how I talk about it and go, wow, he's being really fair and really accurate. He's not just a hater. You know what I mean?
If you look at let's take one of the worst places on earth is North Korea. You have Kim Jong-un. And the reality is there's a lot of citizens of that nation that deeply love the leader because they've grew up in that way. And through fear, through all kinds of manipulation, through propaganda and so on, they're not allowed to love members of their own family. They're not allowed to have romantic love. They're only allowed to have love for the leader. And to reach those people, you have to empathize with the fact that in their eyes, in some sense, this is a great man. This is a god, a messianic figure. You can't just make fun of the ridiculousness of the situation, that there's this pudgy person waltzing around creating propaganda. Like, how's this?
With a funny haircut.
With a funny haircut. Like, it's so easy, and Hitler too, to make fun of, to make a caricature of the person. But this is a real person that influenced the minds of millions of people. In the case of Hitler, tens of millions of people, and created a huge amount of suffering, not because of the caricature version, but because he was a charismatic leader. He was somebody that people deeply, deeply loved. And that just over time, with the abuse of any kind of ideology, this happens over and over. And so, yeah, it's interesting because Scientology is so close to the to the core of what is America, because so many Americans are involved with it. So it's interesting to study the beauty and the power of the ideas that underlie it and where things go wrong.
Yeah. And I'll just say, it's interesting to note, you would never get a representative of the Church of Scientology to sit down and have a conversation with you and even be as fair and accurate about Scientology as I'm going to be, which is noteworthy.
Do you honestly deeply believe that's the case? There's not going to be a high-level official that would sit down for a conversation?
No.
I disagree with you.
I hope you're right.
Because I think that given the current dynamics of what's happening,
the high level officials did one interview and it did not go well. Over and over. It's I don't see anyone ever wanting an actual conversation. if you have a camera, they do not even allow you to do anything I've seen. So
I think in order to save, from their perspective, in order to save the Church of Scientology, they have to be transparent and authentic. Basically, steelman their case, but better.
You would think so.
Well, we'll talk about the other ways you could do that, which is through manipulation, through propaganda, through control media, and all that kind of stuff.
They paint themselves into a corner of not being able to send a representative out into the world to speak honestly about it because you're literally not allowed to. So when faced, if you're just sitting down with an entertainment journalist, a representative might be able to fudge their way through an interview. But sitting down for a long format interview with someone who is going to ask them about Xenu and the body Thetans and Leah Remini and Lisa McPherson, that's a no-go zone. So I'm representing why it will never happen, but shit, I would tune in for that interview. I mean, I hope you do get someone.
You don't think David Miscavige would sit down for an interview?
I would love to be wrong.
In general, journalists in these kinds of situations can attack in a way that doesn't empathize and doesn't come from a place of deep knowledge.
yeah, I doubt it. But yeah, this is why it's so important to be rooted in faith and love and scriptures, because when you put your faith and trust in Jesus and Jesus alone, you'll never get let down. You'll never get hurt. He's not going to take advantage of you because you paid the price for your sins. So guys, I encourage you to go to Jesus today. Let me know in the comments down below what you guys think about this, because this is absolutely wild. Anyway, guys, thank you so much for watching, and subscribe if you haven't.